Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call to order the Thursday, March 20th, 2014 budget work session of the Cabarrus County Board of Education. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that we amend the agenda.
Okay, I have a motion to amend the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
I'd like to amend the agenda to include a piece on here to have a discussion about the bond referendum.
Okay. Board members, there's a motion to amend the agenda and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the agenda has been amended. So let's do this to make sure we're formal. I need a motion to adopt the amended agenda.
Move for approval.
I have a motion by
Second.
Mr. Shue and a second by Mr. Walter. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Okay, we will move ahead with the amended agenda. We will go on to the budget presentation, and we will have the bond discussion after the budget presentation. And we will welcome Ms. Kelly Klutz to the podium with lots of numbers.
Yes, thank you, and good evening. So this is our second budget presentation, and we're going to review almost pretty much every part of our budget this evening. Anything that we reviewed last evening, we will hit that quickly, and then we will, on April the 7th, we will we will answer any questions or concerns that you've had from the past two meetings, and then we will discuss the budget, the results of the budget survey that we've just recently received. And then on April the 14th, we will adopt a proposed budget that we will send to the Board of Commissioners as our recommended budget. Easy for me to say. So we'll start with a summary document, and you all have, let me get my bearings here. You all have a hard copy because some of the writing in the back is a little bit small. So, and you also have the digital copies available to you on Board Docs. So the first document that we'll review is a summary of our request. Are we all in?
If you don't mind, I think we're all looking at the paper copies.
looking at
If
the
you'll
paper
just
copies.
reference the page
Okay.
number on the paper copy,
On
I
the
think
paper
that would
copy.
help us.
Okay, so we're on page 2 of the paper copy. And at the top it says Cabarrus County Schools funding request, per pupil funding included. And this is our current expense request. And so on the left side of the document is our currently adopted budget from the local Cabarrus County School, from Cabarrus County. So at the bottom of that document, you'll see total current expense $48,492,658 at a per pupil expense of $1,612.28. Okay, so we're going to focus on the far right side, 2014-2015. We'll summarize our request, and then through the night we're going to go through the detail of our request. Okay, so just to give you a basis, a framework. Our operating ADM funding, we're going to request an increase of $8,200,162, and that's on top of the $36 million that we currently have in our budget this year. The charter school allocation, we're going to request a $1.4 million increase on top of what we currently have in our budget. For building maintenance, we're going to request $1.2 million, and of course I'm rounding a little bit. You see the actual number on the document. The grounds maintenance, we're going to request $435,195. Technology, an increase of $6.6 million. Okay, so our operating current expense, we're going to request an increase of $17.9 million from the county. Okay, so just to give you some logistics and way to work around this document, you see the letters to the right, the red letters A plus B. So those letters are going to tie to future documents with detail. So if you want to see where that $8.2 million comes from, go to the document on the next page that's lettered A. okay, so that every document will tie to the amount, okay? All right. Do I have any questions on that document? Okay, we're going to move on. So we're going to go to page 3 in your handout. And these are our continuation costs. These are costs that we're going to continue to operate in the same manner that we are, but it's just going to cost us more to do so. And the first thing that we point out at the top of that document is that the state projection, the state estimates that we're going to have 30,519 students in Cabarrus County schools next year. And we are currently at 30,077 students. And when I say currently, that means for the folks that handle the money, it means the better of the first or the second month ADM. We get funded based on those two numbers. So at the second month, we were 30,077. We are currently higher than that now, but we don't get funded for anything but the higher of the first or the second month ADM. So that's the number that counts for funding, 30,077. I think we're at 30,002 something now, okay, 200 something. So we're expected to have 442 students come into our system. We're going to talk a little bit more about the impact of charter schools later in the evening. But what you need to remember about that is they're going to come into our county. Our county is growing. Whether they are in our schools or whether they're in charter schools, the county has to fund or has an obligation to fund these 442 students, whether they're here or whether they're sitting in a charter school.
So you're eliminating Kannapolis from this number, is that what you're saying?
Right. Right. The state does a projection for Kannapolis separately. So we have to, we are responsible for getting the money from the county and sending it to the charter directly. So the dollars have to come through us. Okay?
Is that a one-to-one pass-through?
It should be. If the county, so for example, this year, I have my numbers right here. Sorry?
When I mean one-to-one, it's whatever we get from the state for that ADM, we turn around and send the exact same amount to the charter school.
Yes.
That's what I was saying, one-to-one.
State and local, yes.
I'm sorry.
The state goes direct to the charter school.
The state goes directly to the charter school. The state sends it directly to them. Local is supposed to come here, and then we send it to them. So if the local doesn't give us dollars for that increase, we still have to take our dollars and send it to the charter school. And so my example is, I'm going to give you actual numbers for this year. So our actual numbers, our charter school numbers increased 569 this year. And the county gave us $600,000 of additional revenue this year. That only allowed me to pay for 377 of those children to go to the charter school. So that meant I had to take the dollars from our existing budget to pay for the difference between 569 of the 377. The difference between 377 and 569 had to come from our budget.
Gotcha.
Quick question now, if a student goes to the charter school and then decides they want to come back to Cabarrus County School, which I hear has happened on several occasions, do we get that money back?
Locally, for the local dollars,
Yes.
I never send it to the charter school. So yes, I get to keep my local money. State money, if it's after the second month, I don't get that money back.
Kelly, the difference between what we get from the county and what we pay to the charter schools, and then we have to make up the difference. Do we have a fund set aside just for that? Or is that coming, how do we account for that?
This is the first year in which charter schools have grown more than more than the county has funded our growth for or given us funding for. So we've always been able to take care of that. So I knew that it was going to happen. So when we did our budget last year, I told you it was going to happen. I planned for it. And I'm presenting you a budget amendment in April that says there's over $300,000 that we have to move out of our budget from teacher salary into charter school. And so I did plan for it. I did not allow Jason to hire those teachers at the beginning of the year because I knew I was going to have to move this money and pay these charter schools.
Well, will we be able to replenish that? The money that you allowed, are we going to be able to replenish that and have that still set aside for next year?
We asked the county for it last year. We didn't get it. We're going to ask the county for it again this year.
You wanted to talk about charter schools later, and I didn't mean to sidetrack us with that, but that's an important piece
It
that
is.
It sometimes gets a little fuzzy, so, okay, thank you.
It is important that we understand that. So the first item on our continuation cost is the increase for teachers. According to the governor's proposal, that it is a 2-year proposal to raise increase teacher salary, our lowest paid teachers to $35,000, but that would be over a 2-year period. And so for the first year, our teachers would be increased to $33,000. And to do that, the way that our salaries are structured, teachers, we pay our highest paid teachers out of state, we pay our lowest paid teachers out of local. So this would push the expense for to pay these teachers into local. And so I've calculated how much it would cost to make this salary increase for our lowest paid teachers that are paid on local pay. And then everyone else, according to the governor's pay plan, would get a 3% pay increase, and we calculate that on locally paid staff. Yes.
And just very quickly, I got the impression that was brand new teachers. So would the governor's proposal apply to teachers employed this year and the next year, or not until the 2014-15 school year?
It would have, so there's teachers.
Current teachers or future teachers?
It would be, so teachers at an A0 through an A7 are paid at $30,800. And so this plan would take all of those teachers. So if you start at A0 next year, you would then start at $33,000. If you were in A7, you would start at $33,000.
It's, okay, I get you.
And then the following year.
I thought I had a simple question and I don't. So
Okay.
Go ahead.
The following year, all of those A0 would go to $35,000. A7 would go to $35,000. That's the way the plan is structured.
Do you understand why it would cost the local, not the state?
Okay. So we have our state dollars are position allotments for teachers. And so what happens is, regardless of what a teacher makes, the state will pay it. So if you're using your dollars wisely, you're going to put your highest paid staff into a state paid position, because regardless of what they make, the state's going to pay it. So that forces all my lowest paid teachers, my newer paid teachers, into local. So because they're here, that means the highest pay raise, which equates to about a 13% pay increase over 2 years, is going to cost local, not the state as much. I'm not saying that it's not going to cost the state anything, because there are lower paid, especially because you have A0 through A7, which is a very big span. But there's a lot of the cost that's being forced down to local because of the way we're structured. Okay.
So if we don't see an increase on the local, then we could actually be able to hire fewer teachers with the amount of money given to us through the local budget than we currently have. So more students and potentially fewer teachers.
All right, so the next item in the continuation cost is a provision to open our new schools for the planning for those schools. We all know that we have to prepare in advance, a year ahead, to open the schools. We believe that we've opened enough schools that we know that it takes at least 6 months of planning for a principal to open a school. The state will pay 3 months of that, and we've traditionally asked for 3 months of local to pay for the other 3 months because we believe that's appropriate. We also feel that we need an assistant principal in their planning, and we also need some clerical support. We need someone to do those purchase orders, to order the furniture, and provide the support there that they need. So those are the costs associated with that. Okay. The next item would be the standard utility cost increase. That number we're not confident of. This is the best information that we have at the moment. And if we get better information by the time that we adopt the budget or the county adopts the budget, we'll certainly provide that. But we think 1% is conservative and reasonable, and we hope that it stays at 1%. And not, I think last year it was 9% that we were estimating.
So you're saying we've only seen a 1% increase in our costs this year? Is that what you're?
No, I'm saying that Duke Power has indicated there would only be a 1% increase in this future year.
Okay, but this is more than just Duke Power, right?
We have city, and this is, yes. We would assume the utility cost would be utility company-wide, 1%.
1% just seems low.
It is low, and it's very conservative. I hope it's enough.
So are you using,
It should probably be higher. You would think it should be higher than that.
Kelly, is this a placeholder, kind of? Because, you have natural gas costs, you have your electrical costs, you have other miscellaneous utility costs. I would assume that
This is the
they're all lumped in there, right?
this is the best information that I have right now directly from the utility company. I don't want to be
Okay.
in a position to overestimate a cost.
But I guess there's a small portion of our heating and requirements is we use natural gas and or fuel oil, or do we use any fuel oil?
We do use fuel oil.
All right, so I thought we did, but so that's also dialed into this utility
It is.
cost as well.
It is.
So the carbon costs as well.
It
Okay.
is.
Kelly, just a real quick question on the utility costs. What are you seeing in our utility costs? Are they staying about the same? Are they going up? I know everybody had a substantial increase the last couple of months. How did that affect Cabarrus County Schools? As far as, like in my own home situation, mine went from an average of 250, 260 to 3-something, 360, 370, 30% increase. And I read articles where they said that was pretty much across the area. Did it affect us that much?
I'm not doing as much monitoring as I had in the past because we have Cliff Maurer, our
Oh, I
energy
see.
person. So let me get with him and do an analysis and report back to you on that.
Well, I'm just curious, because we've spent so much money with Edgecon, and of course Cliff is our energy manager, and we just would like to know. I would like to know, whether we're still going up with energy cost or are we coming down? And this number you got of 5.2 million, is that what we've paid? How did you come up with that figure?
That's our budgeted cost. And so we were hoping to have a significant reduction in our utility costs because of the T8 and T12 equipment that we had put
Right.
in, and was hoping to recoup that. We've not been able to take advantage of that yet, but we still will. So hopefully that I can offset that.
That may be a good reason why the ones may be better than you think, because some of that's coming.
It is
It
coming.
hadn't hit yet. we got a full energy report at the retreat, so it's in those documents, and so, I mean,
That
maybe.
was 2 months ago. I can't remember yesterday.
Well, I don't remember,
with all the stuff-
I don't
all the
remember the
stuff-
numbers that were in there, I just remember we got it. So maybe if you can just
I
pull
can
that
get
back
that.
up.
With
and-
all the stuff that we do, and then all the other things that I'm currently doing, I promise you, numbers is all over the place.
I can get that information to you for sure. Okay. And then the next items are items based on just those normal increases for retirement. So the retirement that we pay as an employer, which is currently 14.69%, will go to 14.91%. And that's on the locally paid employees. And
Now, the
then-
county would have to do that for their employees as well.
The county would, but they're not under the same
They're not.
retirement system, so their percent may be different than ours, a little bit different than ours. The hospitalization is going up in addition, so that's going to go to $5,435 per person, so that's an increase for the locally paid staff we have to pay here. And then the employer, it's a hospitalization that we have to, that will impact us due to the Affordable Care Act. And we've talked about this a little bit. So we have some options here. Due to the Affordable Care Act, there's a group of employees that we were not required by law to provide health insurance, and that's our subs. And so I've never known us having to have provide insurance, health insurance for that group of employees, but under this act, we'll have to, or we can reduce them to below 30 hours per week. But we know already that we don't have enough subs to take care of our needs in the schools. Our schools struggle, and we want the most qualified and best subs to take care of our students and our teachers. And so we talked at length with our principals about this, and would it be possible for them to reduce the number of hours and reduce the number of days that subs come into the classroom so that we could avoid this expense. And they said absolutely, they didn't see any way that was possible. And I said, so your options are this or this. You know, we can have less of this or we can do this. And they said, and most of the time they tell me they'll take the lesser of the evil. But they were unable to bend on this. They said there was no way that they could find enough subs, enough qualified subs, and that they had to, they felt like we had to absorb this cost associated with this to be able to get enough subs in the classroom. I don't know what the bronze plan is.
I'm sorry, establishes certain levels of plans. What was the calculation? What was the basis of this calculation here? From where do you get the premium approximate cost that you're using in this calculation?
So there's a look-back period, and so we look back for a year to determine how many hours those subs or those employees would have worked if we look back for a year. And if anyone in that period were deemed as working full-time, 30 hours or more, then that person then was eligible for health insurance. And so we use that criteria to determine how many of our subs worked more than 30 hours per week and would then become eligible.
Okay.
And so based on that number, we calculated the cost of the health insurance, $5,400 a year times the number of people that now are eligible according to this act versus there was before.
Okay. And you feel $5,400 a year is an accurate amount for a full 10-month coverage.
That's what it cost us,
Okay.
yes, when, under the state health plan.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
I've got questions about the principles and that dynamic of how that works. I think we'd get way bogged down, so that may be something I just want to get.
Okay.
I just want to learn how that thought process is.
Okay.
I'm concerned that they are in a position where this is the best option. You know, that's rough. So,
It is rough.
but that may be that's maybe you and I. You could just explain to me of how that works at a later date.
Okay. Okay, so that brings us to our continuation. So for us just to continue to operate as we are, so if it wasn't, so we're not changing the way that we do subs. If we don't change the way that we do subs, it's going to cost us $347,000 more dollars. Otherwise, we have to change the way that we that we currently operate. We're not changing with the utility costs increase. We're not changing the way that we do anything. It's just going to cost us more to operate the way that we're operating. So all of these items, if we just do what we're doing, it's going to cost us $1.2 million more dollars to do what we're currently doing. Okay, so those are local dollars. $1.2 million. Okay, so go to page 4. Now, these are the items that are expansion items. And so these are the things that we want to do better or increase or request more of than what we don't have now or we want to do more of. So the first item, and I want to go back to the details. At the bottom of your document, there's a yellow highlighted thing. It says justification documents for each request can be found on the finance web page, and then there's that that link there. I do have those here for us. Kelly, help me. They're in board docs actually.
I can't get into Board Docs unless I take your PowerPoint down.
Just minimize it. Can you minimize it?
Yeah.
So I just want to show you that for each, right there they are. So for each item that we have requested, there is a justification page on our website and in board docs that explains every document in detail. Okay, so if you have specific questions, we'll go to that tonight. If you want that for your reference later, then it's available. But I just wanted you to know that. Okay, we can go back. Okay, so the first item is support for the salary study. So in last year's budget, same time this year, we requested a little over $4 million for support for the salary study. There were a couple of phases. There were 3 phases. This was phase 1. We requested $4 million. We did not receive any of those dollars in the salary study. Mid-year, we asked for those dollars again. We asked for 1.5%. We received 1%. And so now we're asking for to complete that phase 1 of the study.
So Kelly, when we were asked why this wasn't part of the normal budget process, the answer was it wasn't funded, and that's why we came back.
That's exactly correct. It was part of the normal process. And you can see those documents on our website from last year.
Kelly, can I ask a question? So on this request, you're asking for $2,063,000. Now, we got a 1% request, and that was this year. And if we were to compare that to the salary study, that changed our ranking from 55th in 2011 to 33rd in 2011 on 2011 dollars. Now, we don't know what's happened with the dollars since that point in time.
Correct.
With this particular request, if we were to get this request of $2,063,000, then our ranking on the 2011 salary survey study will move our teachers up to 23rd, but there's been 2012, 2013, and 2014 that these districts have had the opportunity to raise their teachers' pay, so we really do not know whether we've really improved or not in our salary survey at this point. Even with these raises, we may not have made any headway at all. And that's a conjecture, but at the same time, there's a 3-year gap between where we started and where we are right now.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
And for the public's knowledge, the point is to have adequate pay and great teachers.
Correct.
Right.
And without adequate pay, therefore, we'll have a harder time attracting great teachers.
Right. And just to add to the understanding is, in 2011 and 12, per pupil spending, we ranked 107th in state. We ranked 59th in local. And overall, when you combine the two with all the other learning groups out there, we ranked 114th. Have you seen any figures later on the per pupil spending as to where we related to other LEAs at this point? Because that would help the public understand why our teachers are not getting up there on the pricing that they need to be competitive with the surrounding market.
I do. What year did you just quote?
I quoted to 2011, 2012 per pupil spending.
Yeah.
And that had us as a 114th overall, 107 on the state, and 59th on the local.
I do have 13, 14
Okay.
data that I can send to you,
Okay.
and provide for you.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay. Questions about the salaries study or the support for salary study? Okay. And this is not only for our teachers, the supplemental for our teachers, this is also all of our support staff. Okay.
One other question. This was phase one.
This was phase one.
Phase one was $4 million, and what were the subsequent phases? What did those look like?
Let me go to our justification document, and I will tell you what those phases are. And it'll take me just a moment.
Now, is the salary study, it's still on our website so folks can find it? Or, I know that
It is there, and it's on board
people
docs.
that are interested in looking at it can
It's-
find it somewhere.
They can find it on board docs. Yeah, can you go to the expansion? Oh, it was system-wide. Okay, page down. I can do it now, thank you. Okay, so your phase one would have been, your phase two would have been $2.7 million, and phase three would have been your $3.4 million. You see what I'm pulling up now?
Yes.
The-
You're saying 3.434 would be an additional. So right now, we've got $6.1 million worth of increases, or am I reading that right? $6.1 million worth of increases after this, if we were to get this 2.63.
So we were
2.2
asking,
million
phase one
60.
was to increase certified supplements to regional market,
Right.
and increase other certified employees to minimum for position, and to increase all other employees 2% to an effort to get to a market of 7% is where we need to be. And then phase two is increase, so we keep increasing the employees 2% every year
Okay.
to get to that market. And then phase four was to increase the 2% to achieve the market. So that would actually have been 8% in phase four when we were looking to get to 7%. So we were trying to get to minimum market, and then that fourth year, or the fourth phase would have been 1% above market, or at market.
So in subsequent future years, we'll be asking for additional monies, and the point is that these monies have not been inflation indexed. So if it takes us 8 years to get to this, then we still haven't inflation indexed this in any way or form. And right now, it's taken us 2 years, we're in the second year of our ask to get to the first phase. And so
Correct.
there's an inflation factor going on here while we're marching down this path to quote-unquote market, and market is changing.
Correct. Okay, so let me go back to the other one. Okay, so now we'll go to this second item on our expansion list, and it's to increase teacher allotments above our growth. And with that, we had a lot of discussion, and there was many requests for teachers, teacher assistants, lead teachers, all of those, various types of teachers. And instead of putting multiple requests, we decided that we would ask for teachers, and then we would give schools the option of trading in those. So you can trade in teachers for teacher assistants, you can trade in teacher assistants for teachers. So we would give them the flexibility to make those decisions. If you want a lead teacher instead of a teacher, those are decisions we would let the schools make if we receive the additional teaching positions. That way they could have the authority to make those decisions. And just keep in mind that we've had increased growth over the last 5 or 6 years, and we've held all that growth back because of all the cuts that we've had. And Jason, if you want to speak to this request, I'm happy to allow you to.
Well, at the end of the day, this comes down to class size, and so I would just make an appeal that our classes are full and our teachers manage a lot of kids, and so we continue to lack the number of teachers we need to have appropriate class sizes. I showed you the data during the Budget Committee meeting. In particular, when you look at our class size rankings compared to those of the top 10 school districts in the state of North Carolina, we're well over populated. And then even when you look at the average in North Carolina and you drill down 4th and 5th grade in particular, we're over the state average by at least 2 per class, and then high school, a couple areas there. So that data was presented to the Budget Committee. It's also on the website. I believe my pretty PowerPoint is up there, right?
It is.
Okay, so nice PowerPoint there with some data in there for you to digest. But at the end of the day, that's what it's about.
Okay, so the next item that we're asking for, and so just as a quick reminder, all of these items went through our TRIGO process in the Budget Committee, and we went through a prioritization, and these are the way that they ended up coming out in order to the left, as you can see. And so our third priority is to employ additional school counselor for 10 months. I'm sorry, social worker. For some reason, I see Donna and I see school counselor for some reason. I don't know why. So it's a social worker, sorry. So that's $51,500. And of course, there's a justification document for that. We have not, again, with that position and all of our positions, we've not added a social worker in how long, Donna? We've built 5 schools and not added a social worker to the mix. So it's...
So how many social workers do we have currently? And my other question, and maybe it's some history, is we work out school nurses with the, help me out, Health Alliance.
Cabarrus Health Alliance.
Health Alliance. And what are the prospects, or what is the history of any kind of similar arrangement with the Department of Social Services for social service positions?
Okay.
But again, the easy question is how many we currently have, and we're trying to add one.
We have 10.
So this
And
would
they're
be the
serving
11th
3 to
position.
4 schools apiece. And so that means you don't have the opportunity except once a week to be at a school. And so the follow-up is very minimal. And the services are not as in detail as what we'd look like. And I'm glad you asked that question. Many people think the social work role that's in the schools is similar to that through the Department of Human Services, formerly known as DSS, but in reality, these are school social workers. So their concentration is definitely school, and that's the specialty, which is different from child protection services and all of those.
Okay.
We've never had a relationship where that department wanted to fund that position, primarily because we're looking at an educationally oriented school social worker.
So it's apples and oranges.
Absolutely, two different
Even though they're called
perspectives.
social services, I'm sorry, social
Social work-
workers.
Except it has school in front of it, and that makes the difference.
yep.
In terms of the course of study is also different, to a degree.
Thanks for the lesson.
Thank you. Okay. The next item that we have is an increase in school instructional supply. And this is an item that also was on our budget request last year. It was on our request last year, I believe, for a higher amount. Certainly, we still need all of the instructional supplies we can get, but just as for some history to go along with this item, back in 2008, 2009, we were allocating to our schools $157 per pupil for instructional supplies. And in 13-14, we allocate $97 per pupil. So that's a 38% decrease in funding for our instructional supply. And I'm going to tell you later that we're asking for, in our capital request, we're asking for funds for the schools for furniture and equipment and those types of things. So right now, the schools have to buy all of their instructional needs and materials and those types of things out of this account that has been cut 38%. And we also cut this other pot of money way back in 06, 07, that they had to buy their cafeteria tables and their desk and their technology out of, and we cut that pot too. So that we forced them to now pay for that kind of stuff out of their instructional supplies, which we cut 38%. So there's a huge need for an increase in instructional supplies.
Just as in the budget meeting, you gave us a great review of this, and from what you had demonstrated to us in that is that back in 2008, 2009, we had $4,344,000 worth of instructional supply funding? And that was $157 per student. 2012-13, that instructional supply money had dropped to $98, and that doesn't include, over that 5-year period, the inflation factor on what you could buy with that same money. So you lost another 15% in purchasing power over that same period of time. So that $98 really doesn't even look like $98. It's more like $72 or $77. So we've lost a significant amount of money over this period of time.
That's right, we have.
And the teachers are now having to pay for it out of their pocket.
Yeah, and that was another point I wanted to make, is that we know that just by studies and statistics is that a teacher spends at least $400 out of her pocket at least. Yeah, we know it's more than, we know it's much
And those
more
are
than that.
after-tax dollars.
Yes, that's after-tax dollars. And we know that we have about 2,500 teachers. So if we're spending $400 a teacher at $2,500, we should be asking for $1 million, and I think that's what we asked for last year, just to get teachers out of spending dollars out of their own pocket. And I believe that's what we asked for last year. So certainly.
Was
not
this
enough.
instructional funding, this cut in the instructional funding, was this a state cut or was this a local cut?
State.
So the state cut this and left the local entity hanging. And so as a result of this,
Okay, so you can call it a discretionary cut if you want.
well, we saved people
Reverse
by, we kept people employed by cutting these expenses, but it was either RIF people or not purchase purchase these instructional supplies, but the end result is that the state cut us by over $2 million over this period of time, and we, rather than cut people, we chose to cut these types of items.
There were direct cuts to this instructional allotment by the state, and there were also discretionary reversions where you could make the choice of cutting people or things, and we decided to cut things and not people. So, okay. So our next item is an increase to allocate school staff development to all schools. So prior to our cuts, we had staff development that we allocated to the schools, and the schools were allowed to use that to send their teachers to staff development. They were allowed to get subs so that their teachers could attend staff development, use it for materials and those kinds of things for staff development activities. We've taken that away in the cuts, and the schools are requesting those dollars to use for staff development. And again, we have great justification documents for that. Next one is an increase in the AP assistant principal. I should have spelled that out for you. Allotments for our schools that are at 800 ADM. So again, through the cuts, we would increase our schools, our students would increase, and what happens is the number of assistant principals, the pot, did not increase. Actually, we reduced it through the cuts by 4 assistant principals. We just cut the number, and then our student base grew. So the way that those positions are dispersed, if you were in the school back in 2006, 2007, and you had 800 students, you would have gotten an additional AP assistant principal. If you're in a school with 800 now, you don't get an assistant principal naturally. And so the request is to fund more assistant principals. Sorry. 2. Sorry. So the next item is core instructional materials. And this is the renewal and the digital content. Because of the loss of textbooks, there's a loss of approximately $2 million a year of textbooks. This would replace a lot of that need with digital content so that we could have those materials available to us. Okay.
Kelly, on that, this is where we would have formerly purchased textbooks. And this has been cut so dramatically and we are also in this merging of the digital age and the textbook age, but it's been cut so severely that a lot of our parents don't have books to look at when their children come home because we literally do not have the money to purchase these books because the state cut this by, how much did they cut it by? You're asking for $1 million to come back. How much did we get this year? Because we've dropped from $2 million in 2008.
Less than 400,000.
Less than 400, from $2 million in 2008, and it's been 400,000 since 2008, 2009.
It was cut completely one year, and then it went back up to 400,000.
13. So for 6 years, it went from 2 million.
Got 1.6 out.
So 1.6 per year. You can just figure the cumulative effect of 1.6 million over a 6-year period, and someone do the math for me, but that sounds like $6.4 million that literally was removed, and we don't have textbooks, and we would have spent $6.4 million additional dollars to purchase textbooks. And the parents wonder why they don't have books for their kids. That's the main reason. We don't have any money to spend it because it got cut from the state. And the local is left to figure out how to handle that cut. Thank you.
Okay. Our next item is an increase in school support. And so this is our clerical and custodial. So part of our clerical and custodial is paid from state, and part of it's paid locally. And we just lost there. Okay. And so, and we keep referring to our cuts at the state. But one thing that I want you to remember is that whereas we may not have gotten local cuts, we didn't get increases to to take care of our growth either. So we didn't, we weren't able to fund our growth appropriately, so we were making cuts in other areas to take care of that. So when we look at the increase in school support, I'll take you back again to 08-09. In 08-09, the state allotment, we received $273.71 per ADM. So per student, we received that amount of money. We now receive $235.02 per ADM. So if you multiply that by our current ADM, we would be receiving now $1.1 million more dollars if we were allotted at the same level that we were back in 08-09. That's approximately 32 positions that we would have that we do not have in clerical custodial support. Okay. And so what the request is for $380,000, which could be about 10 or 12 positions. And so what we hear most from our schools right now is that there's a lot of testing going on in our schools, and that they need some support out there to help them with that. Okay.
So in opening a new school in the next year, you're going to need more of it, because you'll need some more as well, right?
Right. So we'll have, the budget request, the continuation budget that we had, principal and assistant principal and clerical, that's just the planning. Next year, we're going to have all of the extra, yes.
Okay, so I'm just looking at your justification, you didn't have any increases on that.
Tell me again.
On the justification page that you have for this item, it just shows the 380 continuing and didn't show any increase in that. But you're saying it's in the continuation budget, not the expansion?
The continuation is for the new schools for just the planning. So
Okay.
we will have more in for the next year's budget.
Okay.
Okay.
So you averaged this out to about a half a position per school, which equals about 12 positions. Is that how you came to that?
We have a formula that we allocate clerical and custodial, so I did not want to commit to how the positions would be allocated. We wanted it based on formula. So we would take the dollars and then let the formula do it equitably. Okay. Okay. So the next item is to make coaching experience interchangeable among our sports. And so I'm a rookie, and I'm going to explain it the best way that I can, but Donna's here to pick up my slack. So if I'm a baseball coach by trade, and I've been doing it for 20 years, so you pay me on my experience to do baseball because I'm good at baseball. But you need me to coach golf because you don't have anybody else to do it. So generally, the way that we practice now is that you pay me, when I go to do golf, you're going to pay me on an A0 because I don't have any experience doing golf. What we're suggesting and asking is that you pay me for my coaching experience. I have 20 years of coaching experience, and that's what you need to pay me for, because I'm good with the kids and I know how to coach. It's not as much about golf from baseball, it's about the coaching interaction. So that's what we're asking for here. Okay. Okay.
One thing I would like, and Donna may have to correct me, but that's, once you're at that 20-year level, your supplement hasn't changed in 10
Since
years?
12.
Is that what you just?
But she
yeah.
said 12.
Since
We-
12.
We top out at 12.
We top out at 12 years. So if you've got 22 years of dealing with kids or whatever, you're still getting the same thing as that guy who's 12. And 12's a lot, but it's not 22 or 4 or whatever. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out.
Okay.
Comment?
I still don't understand it, but that's okay. I mean, if somebody's a football coach, how in the world are they going to teach somebody golf? They're not. I mean, granted, they could be a good coach and good motivator, but they don't have the skills for golfing.
You have to work with the AD and schedule practice time, schedule meets or tournaments or whatever the sport is, line up the transportation, get the jerseys, deal with the parents. So it's
So
it's
there,
more than
I'm sure
that.
there's similarities. I
Yeah,
agree
it's-
to that
it's
point.
more
but
than that
There
specific
should be
thing.
some difference.
It's not totally skill set. The biggest thing here is trying to stay more on faculty coaches, and that's the one thing I wanted to add. It's felt like if we could move toward this, we could add probably 3 faculty coaches coaching more than one sport. It's just when you do the ping pong like that, they won't pick up that 0 years experience supplement. And the bottom line with coaches, if they know how to work with a team, that is, and we'll see how many people agree with this, but that is so much superior than exact sport knowledge of that, because they all have the basic part of the sport knowledge. We have a swim coach right there.
I was going to speak up. Having coached swimming for about 7 years throughout the district, I would never want to be the head coach because there's a tremendous amount of admin, a lot of touching that has, well, maybe that's the wrong word, but face-to-faces and
Yeah.
connections that have to be made at the school, which an assistant coach really doesn't want to make. I just wanted to work on technique and form and the vital things with the sports. A lot of times you'll have assistant coaches that will be able to coach those special things and leave the more administrative and the more school-related items to the faculty who are in much closer contact with the school itself. And those things take a lot of time,
Yes.
connecting with the families and the parents and the kids, and there's a lot of time involved with that, and I don't think people really realize if you get 40 people on a team, how many touches you have to, I'm sorry about the word, but how many touches you have to make with those kids all during a season.
Exactly.
Thank you. Okay. The next item is add assistant coaches for the high school baseball, softball, basketball. And so for that 38,000, we're touching 28 positions. And so this is a supplemental pay. It's obviously not, we're not paying positions. It's just a supplemental thing. And clearly, it's not very much per position when you're touching 28 of those for that. So we can add those assistant coaches for that amount of dollars, 38,000. Okay. You want to add anything to that?
I think I would just add that at the high school level, this has been a request for over 10 years. But with our budget process up until the last little bit, it's one of these that's never been able to rise to the top to show the need. And the whole issue comes back to safety and security. Because even though you're looking at a team that's perhaps smaller than football and the larger sports, having one adult out there supervising is a lot. If that coach is unable to be there, the team can't practice. And so that's really trying to work to make sure we can continue to have the sports across all areas.
Yeah, and the flip side is there's either somebody not there or somebody that's doing it for free. They're just doing it because they like it and want to be there, and that's not fair either. Because
that's
other
what we've
sports
relied on.
have assistants that are getting
Exactly.
at least some small number. It's not very much.
Months ago, we did a study or had some information, maybe it was anecdotal, about teachers moving to some other district because of pay. Have we ever done a similar drill down kind of review or study of the entire athletic staff involved with all the athletic programs in terms of their skill sets and their willingness to stay with us versus their movements to other districts due to pay, partly due to pay?
As far as an official study, no. But what we would say is the coaches that we lose or can't get are actually ones who can work the second job, paying far more dollars and working fewer hours. And I think that's always the part that's not recognized in athletics. They love the sport. They're not there at all for the supplement, because if you were, you divide your number of hours into it, it's so minimal. And I
They're
think-
like English teachers. Yeah, I know what you mean.
But the issue would be, and that's why we lose some from year to year, because they can move to another job after working the day, working few hours, and actually being home more. So that's our loss as opposed to going to other systems.
And that's anecdotal, and it's
Anecdotal.
true, and it's accurate. But is there any way to quantify that? And that's just a general.
We could start putting as our exit criteria when we are not able to secure that coach for the following year, the reasons. We could start looking at that.
If staff and administration wants to consider that for the future,
Okay.
please do so. But leave that up to y'all.
Donna has the next item too, so we'll just keep her. So the next item is to employ middle school ADs 80 hours during the summer for the HR task supervision of sports. So I'll let you comment on that one.
A lot of things we've been talking about to this point have been high school sports, and middle school sports is an area we don't hear as much about. And I'd like to explain in just a moment the role of the middle school athletic director. This person is a teacher full-time, and this person's athletic duties come at the end of their teaching day. So by being a teacher full-time, there is no time before school starts for them to be able to prepare the sports seasons, secure the officials, get transportation arranged and everything, because they report back on the same day that all the teachers do. And what happens is you're getting ready to start your sports, and they haven't had that opportunity. So they've been depending sometimes on their peer to help cover a class at the end of the day to at least get to the phone and do those kind of tasks. And what we'd like to propose, and what we proposed here as our justification, is actually adding 2 weeks prior to the start of the school, so we actually have someone there for more supervision of sports practices as well as ordering equipment. This is not at all mowing yards or anything like that. It's actually taking care of the sport, securing your coaches, and actually doing your interviewing, because they are really already behind the clock when the school starts. And I have to continue to say it's probably the dedication of these folks. We do have greater turnover of athletic directors at the middle school. In fact, we were about a 40 to 50%, because there's just no time outside the teaching, and they do realize teaching is their primary role, but yet at the same time they also feel the ownership of the entire sports program of the school. So what this is looking at, and that's why we wanted to make sure it's clarification, we're not at all looking at someone to come take care of facilities and fields. We're looking at trying to get it ready so we've got somebody there to coach. I'm sorry? Yes, one position at each of our middle schools, with the exception of Jay and Freeze.
One per middle school,
Yes,
with the exception of Jan Freeze.
yes.
Do the athletic directors teach as well? Do they have a normal teaching day
They have a complete teaching day, yes.
in middle school?
There's not a period set aside for them to do anything with athletics.
All right, so when they get their athletic pay or athletic director pay, that pay is just, it's not even straight time pay if you were to look at their hourly rate. So they're not even getting paid time and a half, but we're asking them to put in 60 hours a week or 50 hours a week to do that job, and then this extra 80 hours that we're asking, or the extra 2 weeks, is more of a straight time salary pay, or it's actually not equal to an equivalent to a teacher's salary pay, is it?
We're not sure it's equivalent to minimum wage.
The 80 hour a week to 12?
Don't say that out loud.
Oh, my gosh.
Our employment attorney just, the bottom line is they work during the summer and they don't get paid for it. That's the bottom line. They have to be there because there's things they have to do, and they don't get paid one dime extra for being there in the summer.
Right, and my point is, a lot of people talk about when you work overtime, you get paid for overtime. And I just want people to know, our coaches are working overtime, and they're not getting paid overtime. They're getting paid a stipend,
Supplement,
a
yes.
supplement that's not equivalent to time and a half. It's not even equivalent to their straight time salary pay. It's just a pure, small supplement. Yeah,
That's correct.
Dr. Shepard said not even minimum wage, but because they've already gotten paid for their regular salary, you can't, but still, yes.
Well said.
Yeah, you want to go ahead and do the last one. So we're going to skip, while Donna's here, we'll do the add 80 hours of work to the high school ADs for the summer HR task.
There's actually a difference between the middle school and the high school athletic directors. The middle schools are the regular 10-month positions. High school athletic directors are 11-month positions. So I wanted to clarify that first. The other piece of what they're doing that 11 months is actually care of fields. So they actually use the allotted hours for their supplement way before the time ends, so they too are working beyond that. What this is looking at is an additional time to do the paperwork and those kind of things that go along with that. So that difference, did want to clarify the difference between a middle school athletic director and the high school athletic director. And as you see the priorities as it comes on the sheet, that would reflect that of the athletic department too. Because as much as we value moving forward with the high school athletic director's request here, we value even more that of the middle school, just because of just trying to get the time to get some of the tasks done. At this point, there is something added for high school, but not to the extent of getting the full job done, because it relates back to something you've already said. It doesn't take long at all to use those hours up that you've cared for the fields, and you're not even close to the July opening. And again, that's also a supervisory piece. As teams are taking the field, the safety piece.
Is it also one per high school?
One per high school,
One per high school?
yes. All of our athletic directors, there's just one position per high school.
This may be minor, but you worded that differently. Is there any specific reason why they're worded differently? Employ middle school ADs 80 hours versus add 80 work hours. No
It was my
difference?
verbs.
Okay.
Thank you for
We'll
catching that.
make it consistent, though.
thought maybe there was something there.
We'll make it consistent.
Yeah. We'll change that. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Now we'll go back to our priority number 12, which increase CNI instructional support staff. Dr. Van Hucklem, would you like to talk to that?
So again, there's some documentation on the website that those of you who are on the budget committee were able to see. But basically, this is a request to expand the instructional specialists within my department. Currently, we have 4 instructional coaches. These people are, you can consider them master teachers, lead teachers that work with our 2,000 plus teachers to make them better teachers, to hone their craft as a teacher. Their time is incredibly split between all of the teachers in our district. We have to tier our support in order to just focus on the neediest schools and the neediest areas. And we believe we could do a much better job if we had more folks. Included in the stuff on the internet, you'll see a lot of research around coaching and what it takes to make a difference and really help our teachers get better at their craft.
Okay, so that brings us to a expansion request to expand our operating budget $6.9 million. And so if you combine the $6.9 million on this document, that's B, with the $1.2 million on the document right that we just finished on page 3, that is our $8.2 million request of operating ADM that we covered on our summary page from the beginning. Yes, sir.
And back to item 12, how many positions is that, please?
How many positions is that, Jason? How many positions is that for your
Master teachers.
Your master teachers? 4, wasn't it 4?
4 to 5.
Yeah, we can look that up on his justification document. Okay. Okay. So, are there any other questions on our expansion? ADM? Okay. Yes.
With the instructional support staff, would that be considered the central ed center central staff group? Would they be considered in that count under, like, here?
They're based here, but they spend most of their time out in schools working with teachers.
Okay.
You mean in the ratio of support to teachers?
Or support to students kind of thing, like we did a study before and we had compared our district to a bunch of other districts as to how efficient we were in utilizing central staff per student compared to other districts' utilization of central staff. And I just wanted to know if that would really affect that ratio that much, or if we've even looked at that.
I mean, Kelly confirmed that yes, my 4 that I currently have are included in that ratio. You'd be expanding them by 4 or 5 more, but that includes all of us and 5. Okay, so it would affect that ratio a little bit. But what that data suggested that you're referring to is that we run a very lean central office compared to most districts in the state of North Carolina.
Right, and the last time I saw that data was based on 2010 and 11. Mm-hmm. I don't think we've done any studies since that time, so the school district's grown at a rate of about 2% a year since that time. So,
Absolutely.
So it may have watered down that ratio.
Yeah.
To
that's
where
a
it's
good
really
point.
not
That's a
effectual.
very good point. Yeah, absolutely.
That data that you're referring to is behind the salary study justification, if you would like to refer to it. So now we'll go to the next item in the summary is the request for the charter school allocation. So again, we pass those dollars straight through. The county is responsible for funding the students in Cabarrus County, and we are responsible for passing that through to the charter schools if those students go to the charter school. So the way that we project the students that are going to the charter schools is, we've displayed it here in front of you. Is the data the most accurate? Probably not, but it's the best thing that we have right now. It's early in the year, and what we do is we list the charter schools that we have students going to, and we list the number that's literally going to the school now, and we call the charter school and we ask them for their projections of the number of our students that will go to their school next year. And these are the numbers that the charter schools have given us. We know that the charter schools project a little high. They are positive in their thinking, and we hope that they will not be nearly as successful in their projections. The number that they're projecting that they're going to increase and take our students is 915, which I think is quite significant. If that number were accurate, then we would need $1.4 million of local dollars just simply to pass through from Cabarrus County to the charter schools. The state does a good job of pulling out students that are currently in charter schools out of our numbers, but if it's a new charter school, they don't account for those students. So we have several charter schools on here that are new, that are opening this year. So ACE Academy is new, so that would not be in the state's numbers. Carolina STEM is new, that would not be in the state numbers, and Bradford Prep is not in the state numbers. And so if you look at those are pretty big numbers that would not be projected in the state numbers. So there's concern that if we don't get dollars from the county, that again we are going to need to cut our budget and send dollars over to the charter school, because there's nowhere, we're legally responsible for sending dollars over to the charter school. We have to do that. Okay.
I just had a quick question on the home reach program that we have.
The what?
The home reach program that we're doing.
Home outreach. Okay.
How is that, and how do we expect that to increase as well?
Expect it to increase. It's still negligible in terms of it's
okay.
not making a huge impact. So if we get to 40 kids next year, I'll be really happy.
Okay.
This is not exactly a financial question, but we are talking about charter schools that our county residents are sending their children to. And so this is not a fiscal or financial question per se, but at some point, and I'm sorry for the can of worms, I'd like to get some kind of estimates or information from staff about where these charter school children otherwise would have gone in our system, because they're going from some Cabarrus County school to a charter school. That's the parent's business, that's the parent's right and choice and all that sort of thing. But in terms of where those children currently live, to the extent that we can estimate where they would have gone to school, there are certain schools that are losing students to charter schools. And I'm only speaking for myself. I would like to see some kind of analysis of that in the future. No time in.
It is, if we're transferring a record from one of our schools to a charter school, we track that. But if a child is starting kindergarten,
Right.
we might not receive their address. We could receive it. Do we verify addresses to make sure they're within our district they report they have a kindergarten child at a charter school, we probably do get an address and verify that to make sure that they really are in our district. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay, we could do it.
yes, we do.
And I just mean that in the current school year, 1,000 students, correct, went to charter schools. In the next school year,
Come here.
we anticipate 1,900 going to,
As we're working through these processes, that kindergarten example we just said, we do not know that they were necessarily ever going to be our student. They could have gone to private school. There's a lot of options that are there, and that is.
there are a lot of variables.
Homeschool is certainly, both of those are online. All those options are there. So that's what makes it more difficult. And we play with that all the time. We're doing that now as we project schools. So it's not a one-for-one ratio with that. It's certainly, some of those students could have been our students, but there's a lot of
factors in that.
Yes,
Again,
yes,
it's a
quite a few.
complicated question, I understand that, so I don't mean to get a quick answer anytime soon, but
But we
our
are-
students are going not to someplace, they're going from one of our schools, or a variety of our schools, and I think we need to see that.
So the 1,000 that we have now in charter schools, you would like to know what their originating school is or would have been. Is that your question?
That would be the most probably reachable information or attainable information, I would think.
Okay. That's something they can work on, but let's stick to the budget so we can keep moving.
Okay. Okay.
But Kelly, you showed us a spreadsheet, and you do keep up with charter school enrollment basically on a monthly basis because you have to
do.
pay the local supplement to that. And right now, based on the spreadsheet that I happened to see the date that we were in our budget meeting, it looked like we'd had about 40 come back into our system, so we'd lost about $143,000 of state money as a result of those children that went to the charter schools and then came back to us.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so we're going to move on to our facilities and maintenance needs. And again, these are expansion, but they're operating. So these are our day-to-day expenses. This is on page 6 in your book. And the first item would be the locally funded positions to match state raises. And so we're still going on the assumption that we would have a 3% pay raise for all staff. And so that's calculated, and the county gives us our maintenance dollars separately. So we ask for the raises separately for this group. And so the first request is $106,000 for the raises, salary increases, and the benefits to match that. Yes.
Kelly, that's not a duplicate of page 3, item 1 in any way, is it? We clarified that.
Page 3, item 1, no.
Okay.
It is not. These are separate because of the way that the county funds those pots separately.
Okay.
In line item 2 is the request for additional staff, and I'm going to let Mr. Whitkey come up and talk to some of these items. And all of the items in line number 2 are staff related.
Thank you, Kelly. Item 2A, the project managers, these are the 2 construction staff that were originally part of the original or recent construction department. When we combined when we combined that department with facilities management, those 2 positions did not continue. However, the idea was that they would come back at the time when we begin another large building program, of which we're just beginning. And so that's the 2 positions we're talking about there. Item 2B is a second custodian for this complex. Right now, we have a single person trying to manage about 54,000 square feet of building area, which is almost double what our custodial workload is in a school. And because this is it's an overwhelming project for one person, and you'll see that oftentimes, especially with the board activities and all the training that goes on in this room, it's a major effort for someone by themselves to do that. We found that when we were using outside vendors to do that. They tried to do it with one person. They finally gave up and hired a second person to do it. So using an internal staff, we have more attentiveness to detail, but still the area is much too much for one person. 2C, a maintenance supervisor. This would be a new position for the department. It would be someone that would coordinate the efforts of all of the maintenance staff, overview the work order process that we're putting in place these days, and make certain that our maintenance efforts are more effective and more timely, and certainly more attentive to costs within the department. 2D, the office staff noted there. These are support staff for the project managers, in addition to there's a couple of groups. There's the maintenance staff who are doing a lot of work and could use additional office support in addition to the project construction managers, and then also other managers in our department right now who are doing an awful lot of additional work without support staff available to them. Item 2E is the camera technician. This again is a new position for the department in terms of the amount of cameras that we're putting into schools these days have grown and grown and grown. At this point, I think we estimated we're going to be around 600 cameras installed in place and functioning at a very high technical level. We do have a maintenance agreement for approximately 5 years on the newest of those systems. However, we have a number of those systems that are not under those agreements, and we would be paying contractors to do that work for us if we don't have a staff person. This is a sensitive area, as you might imagine. Some of the information that's captured is important to keep private and for use by school personnel only. And as a result, and it's also important part of our operation from the standpoint of security and safety for students and staff. So we don't want to be dependent on independent and outside contractors for the maintenance of these systems as we move into the future. Item 2F, grounds personnel. These are 2 additional personnel. Right now, I believe we have a total of only 6 people. We have nearly 2,000 acres of land to maintain. 6 people plus a supervisor, I should point out. So it's an awful lot to do. We have fields to maintain. We have irrigation systems to maintain. We now have, which we'll get into in a moment, the detention, the stormwater retention ponds that we have to maintain, all of which, those were truly unfunded mandates that our department has had to pick up, and we simply need more personnel to deal with those problems and those responsibilities. The next item is 2G. We have listed an additional mechanical tech, an additional electrician, an additional carpenter for roofing. These are just, again, if we go back and look at all of the justifications we've given in the past, we as a department are significantly understaffed. If you compare us to any other agency, either nearby or anywhere throughout the state, we have an extremely small staff compared to the number of square feet and the number of students and all of that we maintain. And as such, this will help us start to bridge that gap and give us people that can cover some of these very important areas, being mechanical, electrical, and carpentry. Be happy to answer any questions.
I just want to make sure I'm reading this correctly. The F is just the 2 grounds positions, but then the mechanical, electrical, and the carpentry is G?
That's correct.
Okay, so the carpenter has a roofing expertise?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Now, what you've got here will also take care of Kannapolis City Schools as well.
Yes, sir.
How many square feet do we have in the Kannapolis City Schools? Is that over 1 million?
It's probably close to that, yes.
So we've got about almost 6 million square feet of school space that we take care of with
Yes,
our
sir.
with our current
total, yes.
techs.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And would you Do you know how much the value, one time you estimated the value of the space that we currently have is about $1 billion?
That is correct. Yes.
Does that include the estimate for Kannapolis as well, or?
I don't know.
No, they did not,
No, okay.
because that was our property off of our
Right,
insurance value.
right, that's correct. It was just
So
our-
the million square feet in Kannapolis, or whatever, something in that range, isn't included in that value?
No.
Now, based on your increase, we're right now paying about, per $100,000, about $680 a year to maintain our schools. This request, that would be for Cabarrus County, but if you included Kannapolis, it would be more like $720 a year. And now this request basically asks us to increase that to about $890 per $100,000. And I would beseech any person out there in our listening land to try to take care of a $100,000 home with $890 a year, to maintain it, to mow the grass, to take care of any other issues that may go on in that home for its life. And if it's a 20-year-old home, I'd really beseech you to try to take care of a home. So that's just to give you an idea of what Mr. Wickey's trying to talk about and give it a reality to the everyday person. $890 a year is what we're taking care of our $100,000 house with.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Can we flag the tape there so we can make sure we can run that on a loop over and over and over?
I'm sorry. Item 3 is the increase in repairs budget. We've tried to identify some of the areas that are most critical. First one is 3A. These are the storm water ponds I was speaking of. We do have 26 of them. And to be honest with you, about 3 years ago, the state declared that we would be responsible for inspecting the ponds after every rainstorm of 1 inch or greater. And also to, and these have to be done by engineers, registered engineers, not by our own staff. And then at the, following that review and inspection, they'll normally identify those things that have to be done to upgrade and maintain the ponds, and that has now fallen to us as well as an ongoing annual event. We've gained a lot of ponds as we've built new schools, as you can imagine, and that's added to the problem. But historically, there was never the time pressure to get things done as there is today, because once the report is done, we have a maximum of a year to get it completely addressed. And with our limited staff and our limited funds, this is becoming extremely difficult to do. We're asking for $150,000 increase in funding so that we can address these ponds on a regular and effective manner.
I just have one comment real quick. $166,000 every year we pay each of our city partners to take care of storm runoff. That's the fee that our system pays. That fee does not take care of our ponds, so we're having to ask for an additional $150,000 to take care of these ponds. It's another unfunded mandate that we have to keep ourselves in compliance with our state and its requirements.
Right, that's correct. Item 3B is an additional sum of money that we're requesting, $250,000, $200,000 of it for buildings, $50,000 for grounds. And that's to cover the unforeseen circumstances that we often see happening that we just can't plan for. You often, in our business, there's always things that you can't really budget for, that fail, something fails before their anticipated full life. Something fails because of another problem or another related service that is attached to that item. There are things that just happen that we can't plan for. And what we found is because our budget is so tight overall, that when we have one of these occurrences, and sometimes we have more than one, such as leaky roofs that really need immediate attention, we don't have the funding to just put towards those things that happen in that fashion. So this money would be addressing those things that cannot be anticipated each year as we go forward.
And the expense, as you say, cannot be anticipated, but you also have to respond or react extremely quickly to the repair or the replacement of that thing that you could not anticipate.
Yes.
So you have to have a great deal of flexibility to immediately put in a new boiler or something.
Yes. And
You can't wait weeks or months
no,
for
not
some,
at all.
for some of those
Excuse me.
issues.
I was going to say, and oftentimes we have to pay for example, if we're ordering a part or we're ordering a piece of equipment, it most times is overnight or in very short time frames, so we're paying additional dollars. Very often we're paying a contractor to do the work because we don't have the staff expertise to address a particular item. All of those things add to the increase in the cost of those repairs. Item 3C, vehicle replacement. We have probably a dozen vehicles now that are over 200,000 miles, some of them significantly over 200,000. We've been asking for this for a couple of years now. We really do have an ongoing problem with our fleet. It is aging. We have approximately 60 vehicles that are used. I wouldn't say every one of them is used every day, but a lot of them have put on significant mileage each week. And as a result, the repair bills are beginning to substantially increase on this entire fleet. But I'm mainly concerned about the ones that are exceeding the 200,000 miles limit. Many of our sister agencies replace vehicles after 100,000 miles, after 150,000 miles. I haven't heard of anybody going 200,000 miles and withstanding the kinds of problems we're having with our vehicles. I've basically told our men that, you know, if they're told to repair something, to get it repaired. I don't want people being in an unsafe vehicle. But at this point, we're not funded for that. We've already gone through our funding for what is normally our repair amount for the year, and it just keeps mounting each month. So it's really important that we replace these vehicles.
And those vehicles aren't Volvos or diesel things that can feasibly go 200,000 miles, are they? Yeah, I didn't think so. Thank you.
I've heard quite often that we don't have a plan and we should have a replacement cycle and a replacement plan. And I just want to make sure that we all understand and that we address this. I was looking through some old documents, trying to get a handle. I think, Mr. Harrison, you asked if we could get a list of these unfunded mandates and these cuts and these budgets. And so I'm looking through old documents and I actually found the year in which we took this out of the cycle. We had a plan when there were funds available, and we had a plan to remove it from the plan. And the plan was keep people employed and stop replacing the vehicles for a while. And the plan was we hoped that the money would come back. And 6 or 8 years later, the money didn't come back. And we continue to ask for the money. So our plan again this year is to ask for the money. So anyway.
I'm just going to say it out loud. We seem to be trying to keep teachers, have instructional supplies, maintain fleets in terms of 2014 needs and expenses and costs with 2008 dollars. Am I mistaken by the last hour and a half of our discussions? We are 5 years behind.
And we have less.
In
I think we had more money in 2008 than we had now.
We had a lot more money.
Oh, yes.
in 2008.
Thank you.
I think I was going to say that's true, too, in terms of maintenance, when you consider the number of schools that were built from 2008 forward, that we really got no additional monies for, no additional positions for whatsoever. So we're still, trying to keep up with the increase in all that as well. Item 3D, this is a custodial equipment request, similar to the furniture request for capital in schools. The custodial equipment, believe it or not, there are schools 20 years old that are still operating with the first set of equipment that was put in that school when it was built. If you looked at the repair bills and what we do to keep things running, you'd have to chuckle, because we have a couple of people that are phenomenal vacuum cleaner repairmen. And I'm not trying to demean them in any way. I think they truly are exceptional because they can pretty much rebuild them probably with their eyes closed at this point. But at some point, you just have to say that's enough. It's not working any longer. You would do that at home, certainly. I would think a lot sooner than 20 years going by. But this 100,000 doesn't, it would begin to approach getting possibly three schools' equipment replaced. So we're trying, we tried for 7 schools, that didn't work. We reduced it down to 3 schools. It's going to take us a long time to get full replacement in all the schools, but at least it's a start. And we'd like to do that much at least.
Yeah, when you think of we're having our maintenance technicians having to repair equipment because we don't literally have the cash, but actually we have an opportunity cost of that person that we use to repair that equipment should have been in the field, should have been working on other things, but we didn't have the cash to buy a new piece of equipment. And the fact that I've heard talk that some of our custodians are actually bringing their equipment from home.
Yes.
Because the equipment is so unreliable that they use their own equipment. That's a travesty. And somehow the word has to get out that we need cash to keep this system operating. And we shouldn't have to use our maintenance technicians to do small equipment repair. Because if we were to hire it out, we would pay twice the amount of money to a private firm
Yeah.
rather than having our own folks take care of it. So, just a real poor situation that just makes it worse, and we're having to use our labor in ways that we shouldn't have to use our labor because we don't have cash to spend on other things, and we're trying to keep our teachers in the classroom as well. So.
I did misspeak, though. As I recall, the 100,000, because it isn't enough to replace the number of schools we need to replace, what we did look at was trying to give each school a new piece of equipment, whatever their need was, the greatest piece. So that's where we went to rather than a full replacement of schools, because we just can't get to everyone in a reasonable cycle, so we're going to try and hit the highlighted areas of each school, saying, one might need a buffer, another one might need a floor scrubber, different things like that, and at least try and address their most grievous needs. So, and the last item is 3E, with high school athletic field maintenance. Here we're asking for an increase to $73,500. It's been $5,000 for a long time. That's been proven to not be enough. I've been told that money is just sufficient to buy the paint that does the field striping. There's an awful lot of field work that needs to be done in addition to that. Right now, the schools, literally the coaching staff, the ADs have been pitching in and doing most of the field repairs themselves where they can, but there's a lot of chemicals that need to be purchased. There's equipment time for taking the weeds out of the infields and all those things, new materials like sand that has to be put down on football fields and elsewhere. All of those things are coming out of people's pockets, and it's really not addressing the need of the schools to a point where we have good quality fields at all times. And I don't think I'm speaking, if Brian were here, I think he would say, we don't always have the safest environments for the kids to play on as a result. So, again, we're just trying to get to a point where we have what we need to take care of what we have.